It's pretty wild. So I'm getting close to submitting my first real research paper, and I came across my first kind of paper. It's the research summary from my undergraduate research and my first experience with the summer undergraduate research program at St. Mary's College of California, where I went. And I worked with Dr. Jeff Sigman, who was amazing, and it was this amazing mentor, and really helped get me to where I am. And so I've been thinking a lot about both mentorship as well as kind of staying humble as a scientist and remembering your roots and remembering all of the different things that you were confused about at all of the different pathways in your journey. So even though I now have the title of doctor, it doesn't make me any smarter. It doesn't make me any different. In fact, it kind of decreases my confidence because people expect me to know a lot more than I actually do. But throughout science, it's really a learning process, continual learning process. So as you move up the hierarchy, so as you go from like an undergraduate to a grad student to a postdoc to a senior scientist in the lab or whatever, to a professor, you're continuously learning, and you're even learning as you're a professor. So it can get easy, and I've seen it happen for where like big name scientists, they kind of forget that they were once in our shoes. And I never want to forget all of the shoes that I've been in along this journey. And I actually use that as motivation. So all the things that I've been confused about throughout my journey, I make sure to incorporate those things into what I do when I'm teaching. And so I'll probably go into too much detail about things that I was confused about that no one else probably ever is. But I figured if I am, there's somebody out there who was confused about something. And I want to keep that perspective, keep those memories, and use them as inspiration, and never forget what it's like to be confused about various things, to have more of an outsider perspective. I know that it's really easy to get like sucked into your project and sucked into the scientific world and assume that everybody knows what you're talking about. But it's so important to remember that not everyone knows what you're talking about. And sometimes they just don't know what you're talking about because you're using terms that they don't know. But if you use terms that they do know, then they might be able to understand better. So my whole kind of thing though is like I want people to be able to recognize this scientific jargon that we sometimes use. But I also want them to be able to understand what it means. So that's why I don't like too overgeneralizing things. Like I like to give the details, but I also like to like de-jargon it, use like everyday words that make more sense, while still allowing people to understand what's going on at a really deep level. And so this all starts and continues throughout your entire pathway, this learning. And so they often talk about science as being really like a self-correcting enterprise or whatever. It's also a self-training enterprise. And so now as you move up the hierarchy in science, the responsibilities don't just include like doing more science. They include doing more mentorship and you're really serving as a mentor for the people coming below, next. And so it's so important that when you move up those steps in the pathway, so when you go from a grad student to a doctor, to like a postdoc or whatever, like you don't think that you're better than the grad students, right? It's because you were them, like right that not so long ago. And so I think that some people I've seen like the titles kind of get to them, and it can be easy to think like, oh yeah, well I suffered through this, so you should too. And I totally do not believe in that. I think that we should mentor and support everybody all along the way. And I think that's really just so important. Like, I don't see the point in making people suffer. I don't think we should give people, make it easy to get a PhD or anything. But I do think that it's important to kind of keep in mind that you were in their shoes. And I think that in science, this is totally true at like every step of the pathway. You were in those person's shoes. You were the postdoc, you were a grad student not too long ago. A grad student, you were an undergrad not too long ago. And so I want to keep in mind myself, like, and my thoughts and my worries and my struggles and my failures and my successes at every step along this pathway, and really use this as motivation for my ultimate goal, which is to become an undergraduate professor and be able to give people experiences like the experience I had during that research experience. So I'm super duper want to become like a professor of undergraduates at like a small school, preferentially like a small liberal arts school like I went to, which I loved. I really want to work like hand in hand with students and be there when they are excited about cloning. Like I have like 4 pages just describing like my cloning strategy, because that's honestly most of what I did that summer was trying to get that cloning to work. And you know what? I did. And I also did a bunch of homology modeling and stuff, but nothing really super extravagant, but it was so exciting to me at that time. And now these things would like bore me, you know, like struggling with a cloning would make me mad. And there it was just exciting because I was learning all these techniques. And I never want to forget that sense that you can be excited about all of these things. I want to experience and help students experience this excitement, the excitement of a mini prep. And so in order to do that, you really have to remember that you are a student too, and really make sure that you don't just go into things like go into teaching or whatever with the perspective of I'm a senior scientist and these little things are super boring and it's trivial and you shouldn't have to worry about. I mean, like, you should just know this, because everybody has to be taught. And so I think it's really important to foster these undergraduates in their research and really this like spirit of excitement and to keep learning fun. And so I hope I can do that. I've been doing that through my posts, I hope, and I hope to be able to continue doing that someday as an actual professor. And so I have some more thoughts in the text, just kind of like about the importance of mentorship and keeping in mind the you that you were, and because it is a part of you, and it always will be, although sometimes we might forget about it, but it's really just so important. Like, don't let titles go to your head. Oh, and the other really important thing is to remember that when you're in a senior position, the people under you have like so much respect for you usually, and your words mean a lot to them. Your actions mean a lot to them. Like today, my PI told me that she thought I was going to do great at a presentation that I'm really nervous about, and that really just like, it really boosted my confidence to know that she had confidence in me. And so just those little things, like if they're coming from a person in power, they can mean a lot. And so sometimes even just taking the time out of your day to make a little comment to someone, it really can mean a lot to that person, that was so easy on your part. I mean, like, make sure it's sincere or whatever. But like, I remember when I started off doing SciComm, doing this like science communication, I was totally afraid that no one would take me seriously as a scientist, and everyone would think it was like I was just a weird person with a cape. And then I was in the lobby of a hotel at a conference where I was giving a talk in science communication, and Alexandra Newton, who is now president of the IUBMB, came up to me and she recognized me from Instagram and told me that she loved what I was doing and that it was so helpful, and that initiated this whole like student ambassadorship with me in the IUBMB. But it also really was this source of so much validation and confidence in me that I could do this SciComm and still be seen as serious. And I actually hadn't told my PI before then, so Dr. Limor Joshua Tor, who I'm very grateful for as well. But I was afraid that she would be like embarrassed or disappointed with me, but she's actually been very supportive of my science communication, as well as my research, and so I'm very grateful for that. So, and I'm very grateful for all of the like informal mentors in my lab. So even though I talk about like postdocs typically like mentoring the grad students and grad students mentoring undergrads, really when you're in a lab environment, everybody is mentoring everybody. And so that's why it's so important, I think, to keep that sense of, yeah, we're all in this together, we're all learning together. And even the people who know the most about one thing, even the people with those all those fancy titles, they don't know the most about everything. And so you can always be teaching one another new things. And always stay humble, stay true to who you are. And yeah, so some more in the text.